Let's start with the good, and slowly make our way to the stuff that changed the world forever. Stone tools. Rocks with sharp edges, sticks with a not-so-fun end, and clubs. No, not those. Clubs. Now these tools were important. They were really the only thing that separated us from monkeys. Besides fire, and gods that shapeshifted into animals, did the dirty with a giantess and had a wolf for a son. Stone tools were the only weapon advancement for around 2.5 million years, until our weapon at the 9th spot came along. But at number 9, we move into actual weaponry. The bow and arrow, lightweight, long range, and in The Lord of the Rings it killed a whole fucking elephant.
That still only counts as one!
The bow was invented independently by cultures all around the world. Every war up until the invention of the bow was close quarters. You fought with a sword, you fought with a spear, and only that weird cousin of yours chose to use a slingshot. And when the war came, he was the first to die. Now imagine an invention where you can kill your enemy at a distance, and he can't even get close to you. It was like a hacked Call of Duty lobby. But bows have even more advantages to offer. Imagine your castle's being attacked. The enemy's approaching. You plant a few dudes with bows on castle walls, give them as many arrows as they can carry, and fucking unleash havoc on the approaching enemy force. Give it an hour, and the enemy is Control-Alt-Deleted. But look, castle walls aren't that maneuverable. So what if you didn't have them? Okay, so you've got your infantry, you've got your archers, you got the enemy. As the enemy approaches, your archers are pelting the enemy with as many arrows as possible. Now, unless you're fighting the Terminator, your enemies are not going to be too thrilled about the onslaught of projectiles. Some of them are going to die, some of them are going to wish they were dead, but you're going to exploit the shit out of their broken down attack formation. Infantry charge, give it an hour, Control-Alt-Delete. Now what about an ambush? Hide at the high ground. Enemy walks into the low ground. You pop out and fuck them up. Control-Alt-Deleted. But get this, bows can kill. They can suppress. But what if you dip the end of it in some fun juice and unleash it at the flammable shit inside the castle walls of a city you're trying to take? 3 words for you, pal. Control-Alt-Deleted. Number 8, bronze weapons. Invented around 2500 BCE, bronze weapons changed the world forever. Look, stone and copper sucked. Stone didn't really do much. Copper was soft and fragile. Bronze, on the other hand, was harder and retained its edge more effectively, giving its user a distinct advantage in close-quarter combat. But bronze is an alloy made of 90% copper and 10% tin, which, when melted together, was shaped into whatever the fuck you wanted. But there's one issue. Copper and tin are both rare, so whoever had the most deposits of it was the most powerful. Greece, Mesopotamia, and Egypt all had massive deposits and lots of money to trade for even more of it. They were some of the first ancient civilizations to master bronze and subsequently became world superpowers because of it. Number 7, chariots. We now need to talk about horses. Horses were used for transportation.
Get the fuck off me.
Agriculture.
I hate having a job.
And hunting.
Ouch.
Now I'm going to hell also. Great. And next we go to war. Oh, what the f***? Chariots. You had your soldiers, you had your archers, and in ancient warfare, that was pretty much it, until chariots entered the battlefield. Chariots had speed and maneuverability that in the past, ancient armies just never had. This meant that battles were dangerous from the front with foot soldiers, the air with archers, and now the flank, as chariots could get around defensive formations. But you didn't just run your chariot into the defensive line like a bowling ball. Chariots had 2 positions. Think the medieval version of a drive-by. You can't have the driver also shooting. You're either gonna miss everything you aim at or wrap yourself around a pole in the process. So one dude had the reins and one dude had the bow. Chariots could be used for many things. Scouting, to figure out what the enemy was up to. The initial assault, to unleash spears on enemy formations. You could also flank and just attack the enemy from behind. Chariots emerged in ancient Mesopotamia around the 2nd millennium BCE. And were one of the major advantages civilizations like the Egyptians, Assyrians, and the Persians used to build such formidable empires. Number 6, iron weapons. So we started with stone, we moved to bronze, and then we nutted up, upgraded our town hall, and got into iron weapons. Look, iron is more durable, way harder, and most importantly, it's more abundant in Earth's crust by a factor of 1,000. Here's why that's important. Imagine there's 10 houses in a small community, only one of which has a gun. Now every week God shows up with some food and he says the strongest gets to eat. Well, the dudes with the guns start pointing it around and getting loose with the safety, and everyone else has to back off. Now only one household has the gun, all the food, and all the power. Now imagine suddenly the other 9 households find out they can dig up guns in their backyard. Well, when God comes back to this jacked up capitalistic Garden of Eden to DoorDash some food, the other 9 houses are going to be pretty loosey-goosey with their trigger fingers. That's what the invention of iron was like. With iron weapons, we saw the rise of the largest and most organized armies the world had ever seen. Roman legions, Spartans, Persians. Since iron was tougher than bronze, you could give iron weapons sharper points. The sharper the point, the more hurty the poke-poke. With a poke-poke from an iron sword, you were way more likely to die. Now this feature of iron was copy and pasted onto every single weapon available: spears, arrows, swords, making the entirety of war much more dangerous. 5. Gunpowder and Firearms. Now, bows and arrows were good, but world leaders wanted great. Some random alchemist in China was going to give it to them. The story goes some dude in China was trying to find an elixir of immortality, and instead blew some shit up. And so gunpowder was invented. China invented flamethrowers, and eventually the musket changed the world forever. But no one person invented the musket. It was developed from 400 years of constant improvement. Now, in the late 14th century, hand cannons were invented. You pour some gunpowder in, put a lead ball in the barrel, light it, and whatever you're pointing at isn't going to have a fun day. Unfortunately, sometimes your hand is also not going to have a fun day, and some other shit that you did not mean to hit is not going to have a fun day. Hand cannons were like getting into a fight where you throw TNT at each other. Sure, you're both in danger, but you got cut from the baseball team because you couldn't make it to first base fielding balls from shortstop, so that TNT isn't going to hit anything but your own hand. Now that's an issue, but the hand cannon's biggest issue was consistency. Sometimes you couldn't get the gunpowder to light, so in the 15th century they came up with the matchlock system. So you have a slow burning match. You pull the trigger, match comes down and lights the gunpowder. That still wasn't good enough. So in the 17th century, the flintlock mechanism was invented. You pull the trigger, flint strikes steel, shower of sparks, the sparks light the priming powder, the reaction travels through the touch hole to the gunpowder combusts and pushes whatever you put in the barrel out of the barrel. Now this was the musket. By the 18th century, warfare and military equipment was completely different. We went from iron weapons and close quarter assaults to longer range musket firing. Heavy armor was less effective because musket fire could shred it, and individual skill level became a poor predictor of military effectiveness, where discipline of fire and an ability to protect musket lines with pikemen and bayonets became what won or lost battles. 4. Cannons. Do you think bullets hurt? Try a head-sized bullet shot out of a cannon. Cannons and artillery completely revolutionized defensive structures. And what I mean by revolutionized is they made them ancient. Before cannons, you could just pack some stone into a wall, put some shit inside of it, and you were looking pretty safe. But then gunpowder came along, and then lots of gunpowder came along. Then we figured out how to shoot head-sized lead balls out of a hellhole. Stone walls had officially lost their advantage. It was so bad that people were literally abandoning their old stone castles and moving to where cannons couldn't fuck them up. But then they had a pretty good idea. They asked themselves, what if cannons could move? And so they gave them wheels. And so now the shit could move, and so they became a central part of land warfare. Plate armor became useless, because no matter how many fucking shirts you put on, that juiced up bottle rocket is gonna take them off you. The battlefield became a game of who can place their artillery more effectively. So you found the high ground and you camped. Then you placed different cannons in different positions with overlapping fields of fire to create a kill zone, and built fortifications around your cannon so the enemy couldn't destroy it. And Bob's your uncle. 3. Ships. We now need to talk about water. You drink it, you splish splash in it, and if you're Jesus, it would make you a pretty good lifeguard. Ships had been used in warfare for a long time. The Greeks and the Roman Empire had massive navies, but they didn't have gunpowder.
Gunpowder led to cannons, and cannons were cool, but you put a cannon on a ship and double it a couple times and now you really got something special. Naval warfare before cannons was lots of ramming into each other and getting close enough to the enemy so you can jump on and take control of their ship. But once you get cannons in the mix, you don't need to ram or board at all. You just maritime drive by your way and disabling their ship, and whoever can disable whose first wins. Naval superiority became paramount for world superpowers. But these world superpowers only knew about one continent. Every direction was simply more water. Of course, we know there's another continent, but people over here don't know there are people over there, and people over there don't know there are people over here. Well, with this new push for naval superiority, Christopher Columbus decided 20 years after the first cannon was put on his ship that boats were adept enough to try to sail to the Far East. Only difference is, he wanted to go this way. And still, we don't know if ships were good enough to make it to the Far East, because he found America instead, opening up a whole new continent for Europe to fuck up. 2. Aircrafts. So we've been fighting on land, we've been fighting on water, but there's a massive amount of vertical real estate just waiting to be harnessed, and the Wright brothers did it in North Carolina in 1903. This period was a sort of aerial renaissance. In the past, the only thing in the air were birds and your mom's feet, so to now have machinery up there was wild. And as every government has asked with every new invention ever, do we put a gun on it and kill people who don't look like us? And so they did. The first move was to just bring guns on the plane and shoot while you try to fly it. Not very effective. So next they mounted guns on the front of their aircrafts. Unfortunately, if you shoot them, you're gonna hit your own propeller. So they developed synchronized firing mechanisms to only allow the gun to fire when the propeller was out of the way. Now with all of that development, you were good at fighting other planes, but you weren't that dangerous to ground troops. So they started using bombs, then they developed radar, and now it's World War II. Quick history, World War I was fought in trenches, but the aircrafts in World War I were trashed. The pilots would carry bombs up with them, and like a hyper-realistic version of Mario Kart, try to drop them out the back. Unsurprisingly, this wasn't very effective. Now fast forward to World War II, if you tried to make trenches, you'd lose the war in an hour. Aircrafts in World War I were shit, but by World War II, planes were faster, had greater range, and could carry more massive bomb loads. They had more advanced targeting systems and were way more accurate. They even had different types of bombs for different objectives. High explosive bombs to do as much damage as possible, incendiary bombs to sow chaos with fire, and specialized munitions like bunker busters if the enemy was camping. Now that's the evolution of the actual aircraft, but comparing World War I to World War II, aircrafts made military strategy completely unrecognizable. So first you had entire bombing campaigns, and I'm not talking Amy Schumer's last stand-up special.
My pussy.
In the 1940s, at the height of the Second World War, Germany attempted to gain air superiority over Britain. This conflict is now known as the Battle of Britain, which was ultimately won by the British RAF. But Hitler had hopes of winning this battle, invading and taking Britain out of the war completely. But since Germany lost, Hitler instead ordered a bombing campaign where German aircrafts dropped bombs on essential British infrastructure day and night. In World War I, the fighting was rarely close to civilians, most occurring in trench warfare like the Western Front. But in World War II, because of bombing campaigns, aircrafts brought danger directly to the doorstep of civilian populations. In World War I, air superiority meant who could pray harder to have the Lord on their side. But in World War II, air superiority became the most important factor in predicting who was going to win a battle, and all it meant was who controlled the airspace above where the battle was happening. So on June 22nd, 1941, Hitler invaded the Soviet Union, and the first thing German aircrafts did was bomb Russian airfields and supply caravans to ensure that Germany maintained air superiority. And this was the major reason Hitler's invasion was so successful. Firstly, because German aircrafts could support ground troops. And at this time, tanks had also made massive technological advancements since World War I and were a critical part of the ground invasion. But aircrafts were very good at destroying tanks, so you enlist a portion of your aircraft to disable enemy armored vehicles before your ground troops move in. Now the enemy front lines are fucked, all of their armored vehicles are being targeted and destroyed, and when they look upwards, the air is swarming with flying enemy death machines. It would be quite demoralizing. To top it all off, when the losses start compounding and Russian cities need reinforcements, well, aircrafts bomb those too. Aircrafts were the major reason Hitler was able to nearly take Russia out of the war completely.
Now finally for number 1 we have, of course, fucking nukes.
This shit blows every other fucking thing we just talked about out of the water. You think two fucking dudes on a cart pulled by a horse is a game changer? Try the ability to put a whole fucking city in the microwave, dude. Hiroshima was a fucking hot pocket. They split the atoms. I don't even know what that means. Then America dropped that shit, and the supreme leader of Japan, who butchered his way across China, literally boiling civilians alive, goes, well, that seems a little brutal, don't you think? Now that's a weapon, dude. It was like bringing a flamethrower to a baby fight. Doesn't matter who you are, gay, straight, Muslim, Jewish, white, black, left, right, up, down. You watch one video of some of these nuclear tests and you're like, maybe we hairless monkeys that can't agree if the Earth is a dinner plate or not shouldn't have the ability to vaporize everything in 2 square miles and make everything beyond that grow extra eyes from the fucking radiation. And then guess what? We saw Hiroshima. 140,000 people wiped off the face of the earth. And governments go, oh, but what if it was bigger? Boom, arms race, bombs get bigger. And only 16 years later, which is half the time The Simpsons has been on TV, the Soviet Union drops the Tsar Bomba. Which if you combine the firepower of the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Tsar Bomba would still be over 1,500 times more powerful. If you added up all the artillery explosions in the entirety of World War II, the Tsar Bomba would still be bigger. 10 times bigger. You take a nuclear warhead, you detonate it in New York City, and you kill 5 million people instantly. Nuclear weapons are without a doubt the most dangerous, world-changing, beautifully psychotic weapons advancements us hairy monkeys have ever made.